And now I'm looking to you. I think Vincent is going around with a microphone. So if you could raise your hand if you have a question. We have touched upon so many topics this evening, so it's well possible that you want to highlight or go more into detail of one of the topics that we've talked about. So if you could just raise your hand. It's always difficult, I know, for the first one to be the first one to ask a question to our great panel members. Over there, Vincent. Right. So if you could just introduce yourself shortly and then ask your question. Thank you.
Before you...
It's working.
It's working?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. When I came here, I had a little discussion with Dorsan about legislation controlling of our sector, European legislation, compliance rules, and it's big topic in our sector, and I wanted to know from the panel, how do they think this will evaluate in the future, because it limits entrepreneurship in our sector. Dorsan and myself are convinced it is, but how
you don't need to answer.
So we know his answer. Okay. Who'd like to start?
Well, I'm happy to give an answer because there's some context to your question, or there's some experience that we had in France to tell the story of Ellen in France. It was the first insurance company that started a new insurance company in France for, I think, almost 30 years. So in 30 years, there was never a new insurance company founded in France. That's what I wanted to say. Because of typically like the license that you need to get, the capital requirements, it's quite hard to adhere to all of these things, regulatory and legislation. But second, you need to find the capital and you need to find the people. So there's 3 hurdles at once that you need to take. So it's indeed a bit of a challenge. And second, to compare to other startups and scale-ups I work with, we find it a lot harder to go cross-country, to expand within Europe, because Europe is then still Europe, right? There's directives on a European level, but still there's national legislation that is a bit different. And yeah, there's passporting and there's all kinds of mechanisms that allow you to move to other countries, but it's not a walk in the park. It takes quite a lot of time. So before we managed to get started in Belgium, we had to get our license in Belgium. And of course, you have freedom of services. So we could get through a passporting mechanism, we could easily get that, but there was COVID. So it took us quite a bit of time to actually get the license before we were allowed to get started on the market. And that's just a regulatory thing. So that's just a license. There's the contracts and the interactions with the FSMA who were actually quite positive. But I think it's important to indeed try to have policymakers and all of the official instances to think along with us, think along with new players. And to be honest, we made it kind of a thing to build very good relationships with all of the regulators in France and Belgium. Because we don't want to be considered as like the new kid on the block who needs to be zoomed in on to make sure that they do everything according to the book. We really want to proactively share everything that we do in all transparency. And that really helps. So I think there's some effort by the instances, the official instances, but also by the ones that do want to start a new business. So it probably needs to come from both sides. So just sharing the story as I think it's relevant.
Jean-Philippe?
Maybe just 3 add-ons. We need proportionality as well. We know the ECB, they are National Bank of Belgium, they are bank insurers. So we need proportionality also in the regulation, because otherwise it kills indeed the entrepreneur or entrepreneurship. We need also some dialogue with the regulator. We talk about comply or explain. I think this is also important to find the right balance. Otherwise, as well, it will kill the entrepreneurship. And the third one, I don't know if the expression is well chosen, but this is sometimes a devil in disguise. Sometimes regulation can push some change and transformation in operating models. So sometimes that's good also to use some regulation to make some improvements to answer indeed better customer centricity and other aspects. But for sure, and once again, sometimes the dialogue and the understanding between the insurers and the regulators or the supervisory authorities, based on our experience, is not always easy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Someone else who's like to react on the question?
I would like to react if possible. I think we need regulations because it's these are some basics for everyone in the country. So we need some regulations. But what I see is that what we talked about in the beginning of the panel conversation, that a lot of people do not know insurance, but sometimes I have the impression that regulators know bank, but don't know pretty well the insurance sector. And we recently had something where we were confronted as life insurers, which was regulated at the banking side, and okay, yes, the insurance have one account for the app. Oh, we didn't know the impact. So that's one thing. On the other hand, there are some regulations needed, but let's be honest, there has to be a logic behind it. Now we have a new regulation which will have an impact on all self-independent persons, which is retroactively. So have to be logic. So I sometimes have there has to be regulation, but they have to be logic. And please not retroactively, because that's really
so because most of the time what we see is that we agree with the principle of the regulation, what it's trying to protect or what it... honestly, that's something that is needed. But then in how it's interpreted and put in practice by regulators, I think often misses the point. So the principle is well done, the concept is okay, we need that, but in practice you totally miss the point. If you take MiFID, for instance, it's something where it was supposed to protect the customer. At the end of the day, what it does is that the customer signs a discharge, saying, yeah, but whatever you say, I'm okay. And he receives 3 times as much paperwork, which, you know, he didn't read the first page, so now he gets 3, so he doesn't read it either. So if you don't have a very good intermediary, it totally misses the point. It adds complexity, it adds admin for something. Yeah.
They're always running after the facts. So that's one of the problems. And to come back to your question, I think there will be even more in the future.
Johan.
More regulation, more controlling. And entrepreneurship, I think, and I know it's not easy, but what you need to do is make sure that you still push entrepreneurship and having some people that make sure we are compliant in the company. And that you can do when you have bigger. I understand it's very difficult for a small company, but that's the only way. You don't, well, it's the way it is. Yeah, we just comply, and then we go for what we want to do.
It's not only on entrepreneurship, even it's also hindering like innovation. Like currently, like if you look at Belgium, at the health services, digital health services, things like teleconsultation in many countries, in France and Spain, where we are active as well, these are like very common practices, like every insurance company offers it. In Belgium, we are just starting to explore it, and we are working on this as well, but the teleconsultation legal framework is something that is still very much in motion, and there's no clarity about it. So it slows down the pace of innovation as well, and that's also a problem.
Okay, well, thank you for your question. It sparked off quite a discussion here. Thank you for that. Okay, and another question over there.
I can't see anything.
Hi, Christophe from AXA Belgium. I used to work in banking and now in insurance. And I hear a lot about regulation. I hear a lot about Athora, education. What I'm wondering is, are insurers today really as customer-centric as they say they are? Because I hear channel choices, I hear inclusion, I hear customer centricity. But are insurers really structured in a way that they can offer this customer centricity, something that banks can today? And isn't that the basics?
Is this the right panel to ask? Maybe Jean-Philippe. You
Not
are
quite sure banks are client-centric.
of course gonna say yes, we are.
So don't shoot on me, but indeed, I think there are some room for improvement for the customer centricity, and you can always do better, of course. But what we observe for now several years, this is clear improvement thanks to new systems, new mindset, new regulation as well, whatever is said.
More competition as well.
More competition and indeed new entrants. And I'm really happy to have Ellen at the table, because these guys are also not disrupting completely, but are pushing also the incumbent actors to make efforts. That's clearly what we observe. And yes, in my opinion, there are still a lot of work to improve that. And there is no one recipe. This is a mix of, and I will push a lot on the mindset once again, the type of skills, because that's also, the context is changing. We have more uncertainties than, personally, I've never known that. And I'm pretty sure tomorrow and after tomorrow it will be also different. So we have to change the mindset. And I like the word intra or entrepreneurship. The insurer have to be also more and more with more entrepreneurship mindset and these kind of skills to be indeed more consumer-centric. And it's a question of passion also. It's a question of what you said, Heidi, at the beginning. It's, we can use the word empathy, etc., but that's important to well understand the clients and to translate that throughout the organization.
Heidi?
For me, client centricity, we can do still a lot of improvement, as well as the banks, because recently I was also in the banking sector. But on the other hand, for me, the most important thing, and the sector can improve tremendously as well, but the most important thing is that as a client, you have a view of your whole portfolio, whether there is a part at PNV, Athora, RNN, or any other insurer. And there I come back to the broker. There are a lot of brokers that invest a lot in making available front ends towards clients with a 360 view on their portfolio at that broker. So at least then as a client, you have your whole coverage, whether it's insurance company A, B, or C. And I think that's really important. That's being client-centric, and we do it together with the brokers. It's hand in hand.
Mm. Okay, well, thank you. It's almost 8:30, so let's have one last question, and then we have a drink, I promise you. Right there, Miss Dagan.
In fact, I have a question for Cedric, I think it is, regarding employees. I was wondering if you looked at the same kind of profiles that a traditional insurer is looking at, or that you maybe selected different profiles where we can work on?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think ultimately we ended up having a mix, which was, in hindsight, probably the best decision. Not that we consciously did that, because I don't think we really try to focus on hiring people and not so much roles. So like someone said, like that passionate people are the ones that we want to hire. I definitely agree. But ultimately, we ended up with the team. We are about 50 people right now. And it's a very good mix of people that come like me from startups, scale-ups, and have a different kind of experience, and then very experienced people from the consulting sector. So they bring very different skills to the table, and then really people from the insurance sector. And what probably brings them together is like the mindset and the fact that we really want to be one team that executes this exciting vision and brings it to life. And that's really important that we because it's a very, very diverse team. I've never seen such a diverse team at the other companies I worked for, and it works really well because people compensate each other's strengths, weaknesses, knowledge, experience or inexperience, and it's really cool to see the dynamic of such teams. So I'm not sure if that's an answer to your question.
Mm-hmm. It is. Okay, thank you very much. Well, I'm going to round up here. I'd like to thank all the panel members for contributing in this discussion. Are you happy with it, Jean-Philippe?
And you, are you happy?
I'm
You have
very
to raise the
happy.
question to the...
No,
I'm
but
happy, yeah.
Being the organizer of the event and last year's event, you know, the
Yeah.
future of banking, this was the second one. Are you thinking about a third one? Is there?
Yeah, we have already some ideas, for a third one next year. So maybe more news to come in the coming month. We'll see. So yeah,
Okay.
sure.
Well, thank you very much, and please give them a warm round of applause. Thank you. And thank you for joining us this evening. The evening has not yet come to an end because, of course, you are invited at reception. Enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.